Hello everybody. So I'm here along the Thames in London. It's my last night in the UK. And I wanted to do a video talking about my experience, summarizing the trip, kind of some advice. When I get home, I'm going to do another video where I go through, I'm going to make a list of everything I did here in the different cities I visited. I'm going to give mini reviews to all of them. Is it worth it? Was it too expensive? Would I do it again? Who would I recommend this for, etc. And I saw a lot of stuff on this trip, so that's going to be a great deal of things to cover, and I think that'll be very helpful to a lot of people. Now, that being said, let's talk about this trip. So the advice in this is, I guess, kind of twofold. On one hand, it's for people who have my style of travel and people who have my interests. I think if you watch this channel, you probably have similar interests to me in terms of what you're hoping to see when you go somewhere. But even if you don't, I think a lot of things in this will be very helpful for you. If you intend to go to the UK, or you just intend to go anywhere, particularly in Europe in general. Now, I'm going to say this as just kind of a general thing on the outset. Before you choose what a country to go to, I think you have to have a very clear idea in mind why you're going there and what you hope to accomplish. Because, and this is just me, I feel like if you just want to go sit on a beach, go to Florida. Don't spend all the money to go to Greece if you're not going to look at the historical stuff, if you're not going to look at the culture, the history, the kind of the things that make Greece Greece. Go somewhere a lot cheaper if you want that. I kind of feel if you're going to go to a really expensive country, because the UK is extremely expensive, France is very expensive, Japan's very expensive. If you're going to go to one of those places, you should try to do stuff you can't do elsewhere. Now, for me, obviously, I'm a history buff. I like the history, I like the culture, I like the religion, the literature. I like all that kind of stuff. So my focus when I come here or when I go to Spain is to see as much of that as possible. Especially things that you like hear about, like you read about in stories like the White Cliffs of Dover or Canterbury Cathedral or the Tower of London. These are things that echo in the popular imagination. So when I go to a country, those are the things that I'm the most interested in seeing, and this kind of video will reflect that. So getting into that, I think the most important thing, if you're going to, like I said, if you're going to spend the money, if you're going to take a big trip like this, you need to plan. And it sounds like a pain, it sounds like it's a lot of work, but once again, if you're putting all this time and money in, you really want to get the most bang for your buck possible. Because even getting here is expensive, but you want to make your most of your time here. And if you don't plan things well enough and something gets screwed up, like I don't know, like you don't have a hotel properly booked and you're running around the city at like 10 p.m. knocking on doors, that might not make for a very good trip. So planning is very important. At the outset, I think the first thing is make a list of like everything you want to see, like just off the top of your head. What are kind of some of the highlights? I would recommend TripAdvisor is really good. Their list of things to do tends to be very good. It's you might think that it's going to just be like nightclubs and stuff, but it tends to be what I consider a pretty good list. So it'll have like, I think the Tower of London is like #1, the British Museum is like #2, Westminster's up there. Kind of a lot of the historical stuff, but then also kind of some of the cultural stuff. They have a good mix. So, because you can't always recall stuff off the top of your head, but just kind of go through a list and start just kind of writing stuff down. Also, take a look at what cities you want to go to. Once again, maybe look at like the best stuff to do in the UK, make a list of that, start thinking, oh, well, all of these things are in York, or all of these things are in London, or something like that. And then it'll kind of gradually come together over time. So you might want to do that, and then once you kind of got a general idea, you start thinking, how long do I want to go there? How much time will it take to accomplish the things I want to accomplish? once again, this sounds like work, and it kind of is work, but if you're going to be spending $5,000 or whatever to go on a big trip to England or France or whatever, like I said, you don't want to be left at the end going, wow, I didn't see any of the stuff I wanted to see. This is for your own benefit. So you make that list, and then you go, okay, so there's all this stuff in these different places. Around how much time do I need in each? So like for me, I'm like, well, Bath, there's the baths, and then there's the city in general. Maybe there's a couple other little attractions to see. That's about a day. Stonehenge and Old Sarum and Salisbury Cathedral, that's about a day. Oxford is like a day to half a day. You just start putting that in mind, and you can start budgeting days. And once you kind of have an outline, like you add it all up and you go, keep on, there's lots of different ways to kind of come up with this. I'm just speaking in generalities. Once you have all the stuff added up, you can say, well, it'll take about 2 weeks to do it. And just knowing that helps you to plan it. If you have to take time off work, you can start to think about how you're going to make those arrangements. You can also start to maybe look at hotels. Now, hotels are interesting. I definitely recommend Expedia. You can use a travel agent if you want. Now, the thing with travel agents is there's other benefits to using them. I find their prices are actually generally worse than Expedia, but they tend to be knowledgeable about the subject. So they might say, like my travel agent's like, oh, why don't you go to Canterbury and Dover? And I hadn't even really thought of that. And because of that idea, I went in and looked into that. So even if you're not going to book all your hotels, it might be worth talking to someone. I kind of think it's only fair if you let them book a hotel or two, or maybe your flight with them as kind of a payment for their time. But that might be something you want to consider. Just to get some kind of professional advice on the matter. So I definitely recommend Expedia. Extremely easy to use. Generally speaking, with Expedia, you can cancel your reservation. How it works is you pay up front, and you can cancel at any time and before like a day or two before. So basically any time. Get all your money back, etc. And the price doesn't change. All the taxes, all the fees are included. If the exchange rate changes, if the price of the room changes, you've already paid. You're locked in. So that's really good, because hotel prices can fluctuate really wildly. Kind of another tip, when you're thinking about this, think of what time of year you want to go in. Because when I decided to come here, I figured I'd do it in the winter. And the weather here is actually quite pleasant in the winter. The weather in Spain's very pleasant in the winter too. It's like 10 degrees and somewhat rainy, which I think isn't bad. But because I'm here in the winter, hotels are much less expensive, and there's no lines for anything. Now, some stuff is closed and some stuff has reduced hours. But what's better, waiting 20 minutes, not waiting in line, versus waiting 2 hours in line, or having everything closed at 4 instead of 5? So that's something to keep in mind. Also, if you're going to a place like Spain or Italy, it's really, really hot in the summer. So if you go in the spring or fall, the weather will be probably a lot nicer. So just something to think about. Yeah, so when you're booking your hotel, Expedia is really good. Like I said, you can always cancel. They have a lot of options. They have the review system is really good. They list all the included stuff. Like for me, when I came to the UK, all my hotels had breakfast. And this is kind of another tip. If you want to save money while traveling, try to get a hotel that has an included breakfast. Stuff your face at breakfast and don't eat until the afternoon or the evening. That's a good way to save money. You might even be able to sneak some muffins or get like a bun and some meat and cheese in it, etc. So that's a very good way to save money. But yeah, they have like all the hotels on Google Maps, etc. Their rates tend to be the best. It's also cool just because they'll have like, they'll show pictures of the room. They'll have like single, double, etc. You can't go wrong with Expedia. Expedia is great. The other nice thing is you pay in your own currency. And I don't know exactly how it works, but it seems to be less than what the exchange rate is. Like if something in the UK is like 80 pounds, I find it's like 110 Canadian dollars or something. So it does seem to be a lot better. And once again, you're paying then, there's no additional stuff. And you can normally cancel if you decide to change your plans. So Expedia, great for hotels. When you're picking a hotel, I'd recommend, I mean, it's up to you what your budget is. I generally go for around $100 a night, which for the UK is not bad. You can get really nice hotels for very inexpensive. Like when I went to Philadelphia, I stayed at a 4-star hotel for like 90 Canadian a night. Because it was not a busy time of year, so I was just able to get a decent place. So it's kind of up to you what you want to go with. I personally kind of prefer staying at like Holiday Inn or Ibis or Best Western. They're slightly more expensive. Well, they're obviously more expensive than something like a hostel, or maybe a little more expensive than a bed and breakfast. But you at least know what you're getting. You know you're going to get a shower. You know there's going to be an elevator. You won't have to lug your luggage up like 5 or 6 flights of stairs, that kind of thing. But once again, your budget may vary. Maybe you're okay staying at like a really cheap hotel. Maybe you want to stay in luxury. I kind of go for the lower end of medium when given the choice. But once again, you can sometimes get really good deals through Expedia. Something that is worth paying for, though, is closeness to transportation. If you're going to somewhere like Spain or England, countries that have a very good public transportation system, that's going to be where you go. Like my first hotel in London was a 2-minute walk from Paddington Station. And the hotel was kind of crappy and it was kind of overpriced for what you got, but it was a 2-minute walk from Paddington Station. I was able to basically get up, eat breakfast, and then just go into the city. And I didn't have to pay downtown prices for it, like I would if I was going right downtown. So that's I think the number one thing to keep in mind when you're booking a hotel. If nothing else, make sure it's close to public transit, because it's generally expensive to like rent a car, and you have to park, and parking in Europe is ridiculous, and cars are expensive, etc. So that's what we have so far. So plan, get your hotels off of Expedia. TripAdvisor is very reliable, in my opinion, in terms of what you should see. It's pretty good for restaurants. It's good for hotel ratings too. I've never been led wrong looking at either of those sites. So those are kind of a couple basic things on the outset. Now flights are a difficult one. Once again, it's kind of a risk reward, or I guess kind of a trade-off, because like Air Canada, which I would regard as one of the better airlines, you get an entertainment system. You get like a touchscreen on the seat in front of you, and they'll have a couple dozen, maybe like 30, 40 movies. They'll have like news programs, music, TV shows, etc. that you can watch in flight, which is really nice because you can watch whatever you want. It's right there. You can plug your headphones in. I know it sounds like a luxury, but if you're on a 7-hour flight and you can like watch a couple movies, that's pretty good. That makes time go a lot faster. Also, Air Canada has like outlets and stuff. I flew Air Transat this time because it was $150 cheaper, and they have like a tiny screen up front with the movie, with one movie, and then they have no USB outlets on the plane seats. So that kind of sucks. But you get what I mean. It's kind of risk reward. I would be weary if you're going, because I've heard horrible things about like Air Iceland or Scandinavia. So be careful if an airline looks really, really inexpensive. I kind of planned my trip in part along which times were cheapest, because it didn't really matter what day on the week I went. So like it varies crazy. Like I don't know what the busiest days are, but the busiest days might be like a couple $100 more than the least busy days. Same thing for return flights, so keep that in mind. Okay, so that's kind of like the pre-trip. Okay, one other thing for pre-trip, city passes. Now, these seem like a tourist trap. What a city pass is a local company has negotiated with most of the big kind of attractions in the city to get access to them at a discounted rate. So, like for the London pass, for instance, it was, I think, like $140, maybe a bit more, for 5 days. But you had access to all of the things on the list. So yeah, how a city pass normally has is they have a big list of stuff. You'll want to make sure to look at the list, and you can go to anything on that list for included. I don't like to use the term free, but you don't have to pay for each individual one. So you basically will have a card. You'll carry the card along with you. Oftentimes you can just go in there'll be an express line, so you won't have to wait in the main queue. And time is money. And people think they're a ripoff, but if you go at a pretty decent clip, then they aren't really a ripoff. You can actually save money using them. So like it was like $160 for me to get it for 6 days. But when you start to think about it, the Tower of London's like £25. Windsor Castle's like £25. The Churchill War Rooms are like £25. Maybe it was 180, I forget. But you start to add that up, and that's like $160 right there or something. And then they often will have just a whole bunch of little stuff. Like there was the London Pass included this operating theater museum. The York Pass included this interesting. It was like a banquet hall, but they had this huge exhibit on medieval magic. And that was really cool. So they'll have that kind of stuff, and you might go do stuff you wouldn't do normally. Like almost all of them will include whatever the big observation building is, like the London Shard, the Chicago Observatory, etc. And you probably wouldn't do that otherwise, but it's included, so you might as well. So like on Philadelphia, I spent like $120 on the pass, and I probably got like $200 or $300 worth of value out of it, because I literally went to everything. Also, you don't have to pay. You just walk up, give them the pass, they give you your ticket, you go in. It's really easy. So that's something to look out for. I would recommend, if you're fairly vigorous in how much you see in a day, there's normally one you get like 3 out of 5 attractions, 3 to 5 attractions or whatever, or one that's unlimited use. I normally go for the unlimited use one, because you can get much better value out of that, even without really rushing. So that's kind of a couple tips. Also, take a look. Maybe you can order stuff ahead of time. Maybe there's a discount or something. So just shop around, because the stuff adds up, especially when you're using a foreign country's currency. Now, on that note, that's an important thing to keep in mind. When you're traveling in a foreign country, the best way to get foreign currency is your credit card. Banks will charge you whatever the spot is, plus 2%. So like, let's say a pound is 1.5 Canadian dollars. If you buy something for a pound, the bank will charge you 1.5 Canadian dollars plus 2%. So they would charge you $1.60. They don't charge a flat fee. Like, they don't charge like a $2 fee on top of that. It's just literally what spot is. And that's probably about as good or better as you get from any money exchange. And you don't have to carry a bunch of notes around with you. So like in the UK, everything is just credit card. You just pay with your credit card everywhere. Actually, it's cool in the London Metro, because you tap in, tap off with your credit card. So I'd recommend just using a credit card. Also, if you want money, if you pull it out of a machine, now you're going to have to look into this. My bank, Scotiabank, has an agreement with Barclays that you can take money out of their bank machines without paying a service fee. You have to pay the 2% above spot, the conversion fee. But once again, if I take out money, it's what it would be converted plus 2%, which is really good. So you can, at that, because you're not paying like a $6 service fee, you can just take out what you you need for the day. You don't have to take out like $200 and like hide it under your mattress or something like that. On that note, another thing I do is I have a wallet or like a pouch I have around my neck, which I know is kind of goofy, but within it I carry my passport because I want that on me at all times. I also, if I have extra money, like I get like 140 pounds before I come, I'll keep 100 pounds in there, just so I will always have it. And it's very almost impossible to steal something that's under your shirt. Once again, it might look a bit goofy, but having your passport with you is crucial. You don't want to lose that. And keeping it on your person like that's the easiest way to deal with it. So we have that. Passport, money, etc. Now, when you're going to a European country, keep in mind the rail system is good pretty much everywhere in Europe. So you have a choice, and I recommend if you're going from city to city, you use the rail system. It's cheaper than renting a car. It's normally fairly easy. So the options you have when doing this is you can buy individual tickets or you can buy a rail pass. Now, for this trip to England, I bought a rail pass. I got a 15-day one. It was like 750 Canadian dollars, which is a ton of money, but it's unlimited use on all regional and national rails, including high-speed rail. So that sounds like a lot of money, but what's really cool is you just walk up to the gate. You don't have to get tickets. You just show what they let you on the train. I mean, that alone is worth probably $100 to $200. You don't have to plan. You don't have to like go and scramble. You can just walk up to the train and just take it. In England, trains run every half hour from everywhere to everywhere. So like a train goes every half hour from like Bath to Swindon. You might have to make a couple transfers, but trains come every half hour. And they're almost always on time. So it's extremely efficient to travel from city to city by rail. But like you start adding it up and it very quickly, especially when you're paying in British pounds, like I think from London to Dover is like 18 pounds. So that's like 30 Canadian dollars. And then like Edinburgh to London on high-speed rail is like 30 pounds. And it starts to add up extremely quickly. So I'd say maybe just suck it up and get the pass. Keep in mind when I talk about dollars, I'm using Canadian dollars, which are less than American dollars. It's probably like 500 American dollars. But the freedom to just go wherever I want by rail I think it was worth it. Once again, it's a ton of money. It's probably cheaper in other countries. If you're in Europe proper, you can get a Europe Rail Pass, especially if you're under 25, they give you a really good rate, and you can have it for multiple countries. So like when I went to mainland Europe, I got a pass for France, Germany, Italy, and Austria. They charge you incrementally more depending on the number of countries, and you can take any regional or national rail service in any of those countries, including high-speed rail. So that's really nice. And if you're under 25, they give you a really good deal on it. So that's something you definitely want to look into. If you can use rail, use rail. Bus service is much better in Europe. Metro service is generally much better in Europe than it is in North America. If you're going to Japan, I can't really help you, but I imagine it's better than Europe. I'd imagine, from everything I've heard, it's the best public transit on earth. European cities tend to be very tight, like close together. Like downtown London, you can use the subway. Actually, it's cool in London because there's a daily cap. I don't think they can charge you more than £6 a day. So once you reach £6 of fares, they don't charge you after that. So you can basically use it as much as you want. Like if you're going to be using it 3 times, you might as well use it 20 times because it's not going to go above the daily cap. But yeah, so you can pop in and pop out. But like in York or whatever, there's no subway system. There doesn't need to be one. You can walk from one end of the historic end city to the other in like half an hour. So if you just go from city to city by train, you don't need a car. You don't even necessarily need to take a bus or anything. You just kind of go from place to place. So that's super useful. That's just kind of some tips. Now, one more big, okay, another thing, you need to get a battery pack. Let me just take mine out. I'm using it as I'm recording this. This was, I think, like 25 Canadian dollars. You can't really see it because it's dark out. But this thing will fully charge my Galaxy 7 like 4 times, 3 or 4 times. So it'll, if you just, what I do is I have it in one pocket, I have a USB cable and I have my phone in the other, and whenever my phone gets below 80, I just plug it in and leave it for a while. And this actually charges faster than a plug. I don't know why, but I just charge the battery every night and I carry it with me, and I don't even have to worry about it. I can go like a day or even 2 days without an outlet. Extremely useful considering how fast phone batteries run down. Another kind of tip, if you're traveling overseas, don't pay roaming. There's no reason to pay roaming. You might have to pay a fee to get your phone unlocked, but in Europe, its data is very cheap. When I came to the UK, I got 8 gigs of data for 15 or 20 pounds. So like $30 for 8 gigs of data, which is amazing. That's way cheaper than what you have in Canada, and the data is worth it because then you can use Google Maps. You can go, well, I don't know, how do I get there? And Google Maps is really great these days. It'll even tell you the bus route. It'll tell you at the train station what platform to get on. I mean, that's great. That's amazing. It's one of the most useful things you can have. So let's talk about food when you're traveling. And this is difficult because it's not like at home where you have a stove and everything and you can make yourself something. You have a refrigerator, etc. I don't know if any hotel I've been in Europe has a refrigerator as part of the room. That's more of a North American thing. And even if you don't have a refrigerator, even if you had a refrigerator, you wouldn't have a stove. So I don't know what you'd really do. So you can't really make your own food, which means you're going to have to buy it. Now the temptation is to buy cheap, high-energy things like chips, crackers. You can get like a box of crackers for £1 or $2 or a couple dollars, and that'll last you for like a day. Going to a bakery and getting bread and pastries isn't very expensive, etc. There's all this kind of high-calorie, cheap food you can eat, but that's not really healthy, and you're going to feel pretty gross after a couple days. So your alternative is, I guess, to buy other food or to go to restaurants. So restaurants in the UK, I find, are like 8 to 15 pounds. Even like greasy spoons in the UK are expensive compared to North America with the exchange rate. In Canada, you might be able to find like a kebab for like $5 or $6. In Britain, the cheapest you'll find is like 7 pounds, which is like $11 Canadian. So even like the really cheap stuff here is super expensive. And if you want to get fish and chips or something, that's going to cost you like $11, like $18 or $19, even at like a not very nice restaurant. So if you're eating out at all, even like a coffee here is like $4 Canadian, then you're going to have to come up with some alternative if you don't want to just be blowing all your cash. Now, as I said, booking with a breakfast at your hotel is good. Even if it's not included, you can normally add them on for about $10 Canadian, which is fine. That's not that much compared to what you'd pay at any restaurant. But there is something you can do, and this is something I discovered fairly early on. It's the greatest thing ever. The UK is very fond of all-purpose drugstores, much like Canada and America are. In Canada and America, you have your Walgreens, you have your Shoppers Drug Mart, Rexall, all those kind of things. They're kind of like these mini supermarkets almost. Like they have a pharmacy, they have consumer goods, they have snacks, they have drinks, they have some produce maybe. They kind of have a bit of everything. And in the UK you have, well, my favorite one is Boots. Then there's Sainsbury, which is kind of like a market. In Spain you have kind of the equivalent, but they're just markets. And how you do them in Spain is you just walk a couple streets outside at the tourist area, and you'll find a market where the local Spanish people buy their food. You don't even really need to know how to speak Spanish. You just pass them the money, and they'll give you change, or you just tap your card or whatever. It's not really, the language barrier is not really an issue. You can buy the food the actual Spanish buy, and you can get like a liter of wine for like €1, or like apples for like 10 cents. You can buy all kinds of stuff. And sometimes there's pre-prepared food. But getting back to Britain, so if you go to Boots or Sainsbury or any of these, they have the 3 to 4 pound deal, which is any drink, any entree, and any snack for, it depends where you are, 3 to 4 pounds. So 3 pounds is like $5. And these entrees are actually really good. They're not all just like mac and cheese. You can get like chicken tikka wrap, you can get like falafel, you can get chicken paella, you can get couscous salad, sushi, stir fry. They have a pretty good variety, and they're actually, I think they're made fresh. They certainly taste fairly fresh. They don't taste like they've been in the fridge for a long time. So you can get that, and then you can get any drink. And you can get like a Red Bull, which if you want, you can get a smoothie, you can obviously get a pop, you can get a sparkling water. And then as far as the snack goes, what I like to get is they're these protein bars. And they're really high in protein, really high in fiber, and those are included. And they're like 2 pounds normally. The drink is like 1 pound, and the entree is like 2.5 pounds. So $5 for an actual meal is not bad at all. That's very reasonable, especially given how expensive stuff is in this country. Also, because everything's prepackaged, you can just take it. You just throw it in your backpack and take it with you. Like today I had to go from Edinburgh to London, so I just bought two meal packages and I got a couple Mentos, so that was like 7 pounds or like $12 or whatever, and that's not bad. So I got a chicken tikka wrap, and I think like a cauliflower and spicy mayo or something wrap, but they're like real food, and having access to protein and fiber is very important when you're traveling, because like I said, most of what you're eating is fries, chips, crackers, pastries, stuff that doesn't have a lot of food value. So I've been very reliant on that, and the protein bars, well, they don't taste great. They at least keep you full, and they gross out warning, they keep you regular, and that can be an issue when you're traveling. Like I said, you're only eating no fiber, high carb food. So that's a way to do it. That's what I've been eating. Like I said, hotels and the 3 pound meal deal, you can't go wrong. So that's my advice to you guys, and I'll see you back in Canada.